Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy. That is my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, so we are back once again with an excellent podcast for you. We will be, of course, going over the box office updates, telling you what happened last week, what's going to happen, what movie's opening this week. We have two discussions for you. One will be continuing. They're actually both continuations of series we're doing. So this week we will be breaking down the best actor actress nominations, and then we will be hitting up movies that turned 15 this year. If you've seen some previous episodes, we did movies that are turning 10 this year. This week we'll be doing movies that turned 15, and we will continue that series for probably at least two more installations of this. But then we will, of course, close out with our watch list. Let's begin with the box office. Interesting box office results. Argylle finished number one in the box office. No surprise there. But 17 million. I'm pretty sure they weren't anticipating 17.4 million on week one. But Argylle finished first in its first week in the box office. Second this week was The Chosen, season 4, episodes 1 through 3, with 5.9 million. So the second one is basically 3 back-to-back TV episodes lumped together for the Chosen series.
I feel like this is cheating, but
I know it's on the list though.
It's in the theater, so
it's in the theater. It has the length. It's it made the box office mojo list. The Beekeeper came in third at 5.2. Wonka at 4.67. Wonka is now up over 200 million. And Migration finished number 5 with 4.192, and that is up to over $100 million now. First week in a long time that there is no Anyone But You on here. Now it has been re-released for kind of Valentine's Day because there aren't any other romantic comedies out, so it was like, hey, let's keep it out there. But It did not finish in the top 5 this week. Thoughts on the box office? Well, I'll say this. Overall, the box office numbers were up 23% from last week. So the top 10 made 23% more this week than the top 10 did last week.
I can guarantee you that the people behind Argylle were hoping for a much higher number than 17.4
I think I saw something like $200 million budget.
This movie was advertised everywhere.
Yeah.
Which means that if it had a $200 million budget to begin with, you're probably easily tacking on tens of millions of dollars, I would think, in advertising alone.
Yeah.
To this based on how it was marketed, because it was playing before most every movie that I went to, no matter what the genre was.
Yeah. What do you I mean, it finished number 1, but what do you make of the tepid results for Argylle?
So I think that people like Henry Cavill, and they like Bryce Dallas Howard, and they like Sam Rockwell, and they like the other people involved in this movie, John Cena among them as well. But none of those people, and Henry Cavill will probably be the closest to it, none of those people are super mega draw stars.
Mm-hmm.
They are all very accomplished actors who have been in things that have been very well received critically and from an audience perspective, but none of them are Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
None of them are Keanu Reeves. None of them are, I would say, even none of them are Brad Pitt. I'd put Brad Pitt above Henry Cavill as far as a draw goes. So maybe they overshot their estimation of how much people like these people in the movie. Maybe the word of mouth got around that it wasn't that great a movie and people didn't want to go out to see it. I did see it, and I disagree that it wasn't a good movie. I thought I enjoyed it very much. We'll talk about that later.
We will.
Uh, uh, I kind of wonder if people had known the twist that was going to happen at the end of the movie, if it would have broadened the audience that came to see it. I'm wondering if keeping that a secret ended up hurting the movie.
I would put it less on who the actors were, and I would go a little bit broader with it. I think if you polled people on whether they thought what they thought of the trailers and what they thought about the movie in general and Matthew Vaughn's previous movies in general, I think you would probably get a pretty good size people who say, "Yeah, it looks interesting. Yeah, it looks like a decent movie. Yeah, I've liked what he's done before." But I think what we're still at a place where studios have not realized that people are just not up for it anymore. And like you have to give people a bigger reason to go other than, hey, that looks like a half decent movie right now.
And you're trying to build and bring off the ground a completely original story, which you'll have no connection to.
And I don't think it's I don't think it's an issue. I just think like you've got to give people more reason to go. And I think the standard playbook of things that work, like, hey, let's throw out an intriguing movie, let's just show the trailer a bunch of times and people will show up. Like, that's just not the reality right now. And we've gone into that why for a number of reasons. But there's just a disconnect right now. And if you want to roll out a $200 million budget movie, you can't just say, hey, here's a whole bunch of trailers everywhere that look half decent and expect that you're going to get people to the theaters to see it. That's just not the reality. What do you make of the Chosen episodes coming in the top five, and in fact number two?
I mean, I know they have a broad following. I mean, number two is impressive. $5 million, is impressive in a vacuum, but it shouldn't be like number two at the box office ever.
We're not experiencing a ton of big weeks right now in the box office. Pretty slow time.
What I find fascinating, I mean, we're going to call Wonka a 2023 movie because it came out in 2023. Yeah. It was on our 2023 list. So despite the fact that there was a lot of 2023 that wasn't that great, box office wise, 2023 had Super Mario Brothers, Oppenheimer, Barbie, and Wonka.
Mm-hmm.
4 movies that all made over $200 million. Is that correct? I'm not sure what Oppenheimer ended up at.
It's well over that. Yeah.
But that's pretty, to have 4 movies cross that threshold in 1 year is, that's good. But the problem is there wasn't a lot backing it up.
Yeah. Just for reference, and we'll get into this a little bit more later. We're going to be talking about 2009 movies. 2009 had 10 movies break 200 million and 2 other ones that did upper 190 some million dollars.
Wow.
So just to kind of give you an illustration of where we're at on.
And that was back in 2009.
Yeah.
And I mean, they also had like the highest grossing movie of all time for quite a while.
It did. But
yeah.
But that's, I mean, just in terms of sheer numbers, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Like, people are just like, no, you better give me something that I absolutely want to see, and you better give me a reason to be there. All right. Any other comments on the box office?
I don't.
Okay. So opening this weekend, a couple of entrants into the box office this week. First of which is going to be Lisa Frankenstein. And Lisa Frankenstein is a coming of rage love story from acclaimed writer Diablo Cody about a misunderstood teenager and her high school crush who happens to be a handsome corpse.
Who among us has not had a crush on a corpse at one point or another?
I hear you. This is PG-13, kind of like horror comedy type thing. Catherine Newton, Cole Sprouse, Carla Gugino are your main highlights there. Next up, we have Out of Darkness. And this is a small boat reaches the shores of a raw and desolate landscape. A group of 6 have struggled across a narrow sea to find home. They are starving, desperate, and living 45,000 years ago. They must find shelter and they must strike out across the tundra wastes towards the distant mountains that promise abundant caves that they can survive. So it's kind of like a super old historical piece, you know?
It's not like the Revenant with less muskets.
And significantly further back in time.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And another one you have is Turning Red, which is the Pixar movie that has a special engagement this weekend. I believe that was a movie that they released online and now has is reemerging in the theaters for the
This
first
is one of the series that Pixar is releasing with Soul and Luca. Turning Red is also one of these that was only released previously on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time it'll be in the theater.
Yeah, and it introduces Mei Lee, a confident, dorky 13-year-old torn between staying her mother's dutiful daughter and the chaos of adolescence. So that's what you got there. Also, you have, starting this weekend, you have a Dune reissue. So the Dune movie is back, but apparently it also features bonus content. So you can go rewatch Dune in preparation for Dune Part 2 and catch up with some bonus content. So that's fun.
And interestingly enough, they're also releasing for a 2-day engagement the original Dune, which a lot of people really do not like.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why they're re-releasing it, because it's like widely disliked, especially now that there's a good version. Yep. But hey, I guess maybe they want people to see it so they can realize how good the new one is.
Perhaps. So you have a number of options. There's a wide variety of things out with a number of different genres. So if you're interested in basically any sort of content, there's a movie out for you right now. You might have to look for it a little bit, but there's some good stuff out there.
I mean, the good news is if you saw a movie that you thought I might be interested in 8 weeks ago, it's probably still in the theater. So
yeah,
still have a chance to see it.
Yeah, that is the nice part. You're still getting to see some of these, even if you missed them the first go around. Okay. Anything else on that?
I will say that I am excited to go see Lisa Frankenstein. That's one that I've been looking forward to. Definitely in my wheelhouse with the slight horror angle, but also dark comedy angle. I really like the 80s aesthetically. A lot of people like the 80s, but I like the 80s aesthetically, and it's clearly very much a late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how they do that. Some things like Stranger Things have done that really, really well, and some other things have not done it well. So I'm always intrigued when something like that happens to see how they did it, because that's my childhood. So I can connect with a lot of the things that I see there and be like, yeah, that's actually what happened. And no, that never happened. You know?
Yes. I would say most likely I'm still trying to see, I want to see Zone of Interest. And I am intrigued to go try maybe see Dune over again and see what the bonus content they have in store. So I'm hoping I can go see both of those at some point. I don't know if I'll get to that, but that's the hope anyway.
I heard there's 4% more sand in the bonus content than the original.
There was the old joke I saw, which is like Dennis Villeneuve releases director's cut of Dune, and it just features another 15 more minutes of awesome ships taking off and landing.
Hey, I would sign up for that. So.
I would sign up for that too. Anything else on the box office for this week?
I do not have anything now.
Okay. Then we will move on to our first discussion. And the first discussion we will be tackling will be this week's Oscar category, and that's the Best Actor Actress category. Last week we did Best Supporting Actor and Actress. This week we're going to take on Best Actor and Actress. And so first what we will do is go through the nominees, and then we will go through we will go through our thoughts on them. And all of a sudden my list just completely broke down. Okay. So we'll start with Best Actor. And our nominations are Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. Okay. Just to give a little background on this, we talked about this the other week. And the Golden Globes sometimes are a preview of what may or may not happen in those categories. And their nominations were, they break it down a little bit different. They break it down into the Golden Globes breaks it down in musical or comedy, and then male actor in a drama. So it's kind of hard to, they split them up a little bit like that. But male actor in a drama went to Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer over the likes of Bradley Cooper, Coleman Domingo, and then for the musical or comedy, Paul Giamatti won for The Holdovers. So basically, your two winners there are Paul Giamatti and Cillian Murphy, just for reference. All right. Thoughts?
The Academy loves someone playing a major person in a biopic. We have seen this over and over and over again. I thought Cillian Murphy was excellent as J. Robert Oppenheimer. I can't imagine that being an easy role to play.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like he must have done a lot of study of the person of Robert Oppenheimer and his mannerisms, and it was more than just he was skinny, so he looked like Robert Oppenheimer. There was, I've seen Cillian in a lot of movies. There was something, to me, there was something deeper and different about his performance in this movie than I have seen from him before.
Yeah.
I absolutely think he deserves to be nominated. I still need to see The Holdovers. Paul Giamatti has a lot of respect in Hollywood and a lot of well-earned respect. I don't know if a movie like The Holdovers can carry him to win an Oscar. I still need to see it, so I can't say for sure. But Oppenheimer is just such a powerhouse. And it's, like I said before, the Academy loves people who play famous characters if they invest the time and they do it well.
Yeah.
And I really feel like it's Murphy's award to lose.
How I would handicap it is I would handicap it as a 2-horse race. I think it's not really that close. It's between Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti. I think if I were to say who the front runner is, I think it's definitely Cillian Murphy. Paul Giamatti was excellent in The Holdovers. It was a fantastic performance. I think the other ones are just kind of like there to fill out the ballot, honestly. Like, I'm not saying they were bad performances, but it's really just it's Giamatti and Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think the default will go to Cillian Murphy. I think it was the best performance. I really, really enjoyed Paul Giamatti. And on a different year, I think he very well could win for the holdovers, but it's Oppenheimer and it's Cillian Murphy. I
So
that's where it
you
is.
you have also seen, like I have, many of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel the same way I did? Did you feel like there was something more to this performance than we've seen? Like he stepped up a level.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And how can you like verbalize that, like how you saw that yourself?
The the obviously Cillian Murphy has a somewhat physical resemblance to Robert Oppenheimer. So there is clearly a thing with that, but that's not enough to carry a movie. Like there was an earnestness to his performance that you don't often see. There's a seriousness and an earnestness to his performance, and it just really, really carried over from the moment he steps onto the screen to the moment he leaves. Like you feel him embodying that character. I hate to say this because this is another Christopher Nolan movie and it's crazy, but it's like when you saw Heath Ledger play the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And now I would say that Heath Ledger's performance was better. If we're if we're ranking them, I would even though that was in a supporting role, uh, and was more surprising, I would say. But when you see an actor who has not known for playing these type of roles step in to be the main guy, and then there's always a little bit of like, can they pull that off? Can they carry the movie this way? And he absolutely carries it with a fantastic performance.
Yeah, to me, I felt like he really internalized how much the character was haunted by his personal life, by what his creation might have done to the world, which I can't imagine having to live through as the actual person.
Yeah.
But I would imagine preparing for this role and the way he played it so strongly that he would have had to have gone to some fairly difficult, uncomfortable places within himself to pull off a performance like this. And I really think that I think it will be a worthy winner if it is chosen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on Best Actor?
I do not have any
Okay.
others.
All right. So let's move on to Best Actress. The nominees for Best Actress are Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, Emma Stone for Poor Things. And for our Golden Globe context, again, they split between musical comedy and drama for this one. And the best actress for musical or comedy went to Emma Stone for Poor Things. And the one for best female actor in a drama went to Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. So one would think perhaps they are your front runners. For me, this one is really up in the air. This one is really up in the air. What are your thoughts?
I haven't seen any of the movies, so in a lot of ways, I'm not qualified to give an opinion. Other than, and I mentioned this before with the first categories he talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The Academy loves drama. The Academy loves inclusion. So I would not be surprised at all if Lily Gladstone won for Killers of the Flower. And I need to see the movie because I'm sure I am certain that it's a really good performance. But the movie is like almost 4 hours long, and I've not had the time to sit down and invest in that yet. I really need to see it before the awards happen so I can make an accurate judgment. Poor Things looks like a very quirky movie.
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure Emma Stone was fantastic in because she's very good in that kind of role. But I don't think that's the kind of movie that's going to win
Yeah.
an award.
Yeah.
This so, but I also know that you saw Anatomy of a Fall, and um, so can you speak to her performance in
I can,
that? Did you think watching the movie that her performance was the performance of the movie? Like, was it the standout performance of the movie for you?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think it absolutely was. What I would say about it is I think there are some times where the strength of the movie is the actor, and there's some times where the entire movie is very strong and an actor performs in a strong manner in a strong movie. I would say that Anatomy of a Fall more falls into that category. And sometimes that hurts an actor when there's a lot of other things going for the movie. Sometimes it doesn't. Like I think Cillian Murphy could very well win, and that is a fantastic acting performance in a fantastic movie with strong everything else. Um, so I think Sandra Hüller is absolutely worthy. I did actually watch Naiad last night,
Hmm.
and Annette Bening was excellent playing the the woman. Naiad's her last name, Diana Naiad. I was blanking on the first name. Who was like a 60-year-old woman trying to swim from Havana to Key West, Florida, in her 60s. And so it is like that is a character performance because this person, Diana Nyad, it's based on a real person, and it's a really dramatic performance because this character is kind of really out there.
Hmm.
So that performance could do that. That being said, I don't know that that's going to be the way it goes. I tend to lean towards you and say it's going to be Lily Gladstone, because there's nothing the Academy likes more than when they can get their diversity quota in. And that's not to say that Lily Gladstone is not a worthy nominee. Um, but when they have the opportunity, they will tend to default in that direction. So that's what I would say. If you had to tell me who I thought was going to win it, I would probably say it's going to be Lily Gladstone. But I honestly think that almost any of the women in this category could win it this year. It's really up in the air. Okay. Well, that is what we have for the best actor and actress for the Oscars. Next week, we'll be back with the best director awards. And for our second discussion, we will be talking about movies that are turning 15 this year. This is from the year 2009. And yes, that feels crazy that 2009 was 15 years ago, but it
I
was.
think I gave my best friend an existential crisis during grocery shopping tonight when I told her we were going to be talking about movies that came out in 2009. They were 15 years ago, and she looked at me like the world was ending. And then I started to list some of the movies that came out that year, and she went, "That's not possible." Those came out like a couple years ago. Like that's not 15 years ago.
Um, so before we get into our list itself, like we'll just give some basic thoughts. Doing the research for this year, holy cow, this was a good year. This was an unbelievable year for movies. So I had two simultaneous thoughts. One was, oh my goodness, I can't believe all these movies came out this particular year. Second thought was, man, we are suffering from a bad box office the last number of years in comparison.
Yeah, what happened to movies?
What happened to movies is a real thing, man. Hollywood is just not delivering anymore in the way they used to. And we've spent numerous hours talking about that at length, but those are the two simultaneous thoughts. What were your initial general thought?
Just that, like, as I was scrolling through the list of movies that came out this year, I was in like the 150s and the 170s and the 190s, and I'm just like, wow, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. So it's supposed to be a top 10 list, and I have 16. So
Yeah. And obviously, we're not going to be able to spend a lot of time on those. But one other thing I was just pointing out is like there's so many movies from this year that are just still on TV and are shown in random channels or anything like this that I still come back to and watch, even if it's like 10, 15 minutes. Just a really, really good year for movies and all across the board for dramas, sci-fis, comedies, just the works. Really, really was a strong year. Before we get into our list, just brief some stats on this one. Uh, for the Oscars that year, The Hurt Locker won for Best Picture. Catherine Bigelow, who directed The Hurt Locker, won for Best Director. The Best Actor was Jeff Bridges for Crazy Heart. Best Actress was Sandra Bullock from The Blind Side. Best Supporting Actor, Christopher Waltz for Inglourious Basterds. And Supporting Actress, Monique for Precious. Your top five at the box office that year was number one, of course, Avatar at 749 million. And I said this last time, but I did this for full run of releases for that year. For instance, Avatar came out later in the year, so we included their entire run. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, unfortunately, was number two at 402 million. That's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Guessing you didn't make your top 10.
No. Number three was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, did 301 million. Twilight Saga New Moon did 296 million, and to round out the top five was Up at 293 million. All right, Rob. So let's just give our honorable mentions. We don't have to discuss them because we don't have time, but just run down your list of the ones that didn't quite make the cut.
Okay, so after you said some of those things, I had to reassess and add one to my top 10. So I had to shift one down.
Okay.
But I was on the fence about adding it or not, but I kind of feel like I have to, so I did. So that means I have 7 honorable mentions.
Okay.
First two are movies that are objectively awful, but I love and laugh every time I watch them. Paul Blart Mall Cop and Fired Up, which those movies are terrible, but they are hilarious, and I watch them anytime and laugh at them. Coraline animated movie, Leica Studios movie, really like that one. The Lovely Bones. Stanley Tucci has an excellent performance in that as the creepy
Oscar
bad guy. Star Trek, the first new Star Trek movie came out in 2009. I really liked it, but it was not for me a top 10 movie of the year. And then a movie that is now apparently called The Boat That Rocked, but when it came out, it was called Pirate Radio. Changed because that's how it's listed on IMDb.
Okay.
But it was about a group of people who were out in the waters off of England broadcasting a pirate radio signal to play certain kinds of music that was being frowned upon by the normal radio channels and the censors and all that. So those are my honorable mentions.
All right. So my honorable mentions, and I think there are, in fact, 8 of them. And I had to stop because there are probably 4 or 5 more I could put on there. My honorable mentions: Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Gran Torino, Knowing, Up, I Love You Man, Law Abiding Citizen, Angels and Demons, and Taken.
Yeah, I could have added all those movies too, honestly.
And I could have added like The Proposal. I could have added Couples Retreat. There's so many other movies that I could have added to that list. And on another year, almost any one of those movies would have made it onto my top 10 list. But that's how loaded this year was.
Is in my top 10. So I'll tell you something. Oh, also a movie that I moved down, which I don't think I said, that was originally at number 10 before I shifted it down, Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I didn't even include that on the list.
And Jude Law. Fantastic movie. Very interesting take on Sherlock Holmes and Guy Ritchie. Just cool to see his version of it. I liked it.
All right, so we'll do these. We'll do them 3 at a time, and when we'll do kind of like we did before, where we'll do if the first person to mention a specific movie, we can talk about it at that point, with the exception of if it's your number one, talk about it when we get to the number one spot.
Yeah.
All right. So give me your 10, 9, 8.
All right, number 10, I have Avatar,
Okay.
the one I just slid in there. Um, I kind of feel so I have it as number 10. I feel like out of obligation, like I feel like it has to be in the top 10. I don't love Avatar, so I feel like the story has been told before and better.
Mm-hmm.
Often I've seen this movie described as dances with wolves in space. I think, but at the same time, I think there's no arguing technologically, visually, a whole bunch was groundbreaking in this movie. So I feel like it has to be recognized in some way, but I just it's not one of my favorites.
I have no compunction with leaving it off of all of my lists. It
Okay.
was a film that was forgotten almost the moment it came, almost the moment it left theaters. Like it's just
So when
like
I originally made my list, it wasn't on there, but then I felt guilty.
it was a like you were right in that it was a technical marvel, and the what started the brief re-revolution with 3D movies. But aside from that, it just wasn't that good of a movie.
My number 9 was The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Ah, okay.
George Clooney, yeah, Ewan McGregor, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
About basically about torture and mindfulness and how you go into a different headspace to help defeat the enemy with the army. Um, Going about a completely different way than has ever been done before, and it's a very surprisingly funny movie. And I think a lot of people probably don't know about it.
See, now my caveat is I've only seen it once, and it's been a very long time. It was probably close to when it came out, but I didn't like it.
Hmm.
I don't remember why I didn't like it, but I think it was because I was anticipating it being better than what I ended up thinking it was.
And I
Now,
know I saw this movie several times, and I think that I recall liking it more the more times I saw it.
yeah,
So for
maybe I'll
me,
have
that
to
was
give it another shot.
thing that was being done on me, just like they were doing on the prisoners in the movie. Um, Number 8 for me, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs,
Hmm.
which is still one of my all-time favorite animated movies, and I think just phenomenally hilarious. I know it's not for everyone, but I love it, and it's stupid, and it makes me laugh out loud every time I watch it.
I think I've seen probably half hour, 45 minutes of it. And what I've seen, I liked, and I thought it was creative and clever. And I remember reading the book a lot when I was a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, cool. My number 10 was Moon. And I know Sam Rockwell was in this. This one really surprised me. I think it was one of those where I bought the DVD like at like a closeout of one of the Blockbuster stores when they were like going out of business. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I'll buy it. And then I watched it. It was like, oh wow, this is actually really good. And it ends up being really a really fascinating movie. So it was much better than I anticipated, and really is a high quality sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I actually have it at number 5.
Okay.
I mean, for the year, and uh, this movie is kind of really what made me uh, fall in love with Sam Rockwell as an actor.
Mm.
Because he completely carries this movie. Because the only other person in the movie is a robot, voiced by Kevin Spacey, and he just does a fantastic job
Mm-hmm.
in character. And I also watched it not really expecting much of anything, and I remember watching it and recommending it to several of my friends like right away because it's like, you guys need to see this movie because I know you have not heard of it and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those movies, like one of those smaller movies that goes under the radar that really just needs to be recommended to people because they just don't know about it. Number 9 for me is Up in the Air. This is the George Clooney, Anna Kendrick, Vera Farmiga drama, and basically about his George Clooney is like the veteran guy who just swoops into companies and fires people, and then in the movie they hire Anna Kendrick out of college, and she starts firing people online, and so they're the two of them are flying around the country, and it's really just an interesting character drama. reflections on corporate culture, reflections on how technology is changing the workplace, but also how it's changing people and their longtime jobs, but how what people do affects them personally. And there's some really, really good individual scenes in this movie. Have you seen it?
I actually have not seen it.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. Um, there's a really good, well-written scene as Anna Kendrick kind of struggles with um, her breakup with her boyfriend, or for her fiance, I think he was, if I remember correctly. And she's having this meltdown because she feels bad for wanting a relationship and feels like she's not being feminist because she wants a relationship and she wants a family, but she wants to be the business. So that kind of like headspace struggle is it was just a really well done, really well written scene. So yeah, up in the air. Number 9. Number 8, I had State of Play. This one, there was a British version of this that came out slightly earlier, and they did an American retake on it, and it was really good. It's a newspaper is investigating a scandal, and one of the writers of the thing, which is played by Russell Crowe, knows the politician at the heart of the scandal, and then you have an up and coming blogger reporter in now I'm blanking out on her name. Uh, but comes alongside him and the two of them. So it's kind of like that newspaper investigation type drama story. So fun story.
Yeah, I think I've only seen it once, so I don't really remember a whole lot about it.
Yeah, I enjoy a good kind of like murder mystery investigation drama movie, and this one's right up there.
Okay, so number 7 for me was 500 Days of Summer.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zoe Deschanel.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the last really, really quality romantic comedies I can remember. And I thought very original and unique in the story it told. And I just, it's just a very heartwarming movie for me, although it's also very sad at times and kind of depressing at times. As well as very realistic. And I really liked their take on how the difficulty in getting into and maintaining a relationship. There's really movies about, and I think it did a great job tackling those issues.
Yeah, I've seen it once, and I don't really have a huge memory of it, so I must not have been paying close attention to it.
Number 6 for me is Up, which you already mentioned in your honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best, if not the best, Disney Pixar movie. And if the first 3 minutes don't make you cry, then you don't have a soul.
It's really, really poignant movie. It really is. It's a really, really poignant movie. Oh,
Number 5 was Moon.
Yeah, excellent. Number 7 for me was Watchmen, which I know is definitely going to be higher on your list. Yeah, it was one of the. I don't know if it was the first Zack Snyder movie I saw, or if it's one of the ones where I really started paying attention to Zack Snyder. So whether it was the first one or not, um, but just the intense visualization that he creates in this, and the moments he creates in it. Some people love it, some people don't love it, which is very typical of Zack Snyder. Uh, but I think what he achieved here, given you know the difficulty of bringing I think it maybe still is at the time like the biggest graphic novel that there was to life. I think he did a fantastic job.
I'm going to wait to talk about that one. So,
all right. Number 6 for me is Zombieland. This movie is just fun. This movie is just so much fun. Like the interaction between the characters, Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, and what I'm blanking on her name, the youngest one. But anyway, the characters are fantastic. It's a different kind of comedic take on like zombie apocalypse, yet it creates some real like meaningful moments. and that sense of like mistrust and isolation you would have when everything around you collapses, and then yet the desire and the need for companionship and friendship. Plus, it's just really funny.
I've got to hold my hands up on this one and say it's to my great shame that I've not seen this movie because
Wow. Okay.
so many times, and it's like right in the genres of movies that I like.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one of those things where like I'm scrolling through things and I'm like, oh, it's there. I still haven't watched it. I want to watch something else. You know,
Oh
so one
no,
of these
you
times I've got to be like, let's watch this now.
you
Uh,
definitely have
yeah.
to see Zombieland. And number 5 for me is Star Trek. I thought about putting this higher up on the list because I really, really like it. And I think they did such a good job with the reboot on this one. But I ended up landing at number 5 right here for Star Trek. As a big Star Trek fan, you always kind of hold your breath when they try to relaunch something and they're like, "We're gonna do it again with a younger cast and we're gonna give it a twist." But I thought they just nailed almost everything on this movie in terms of how they were going to redo it and how they cast the characters and the performances involved.
Nice. All right. So number 4 for me, I believe.
Yep, 4, 3, and 2.
Fantastic Mr. Fox,
Mm.
which I think is still my favorite animated Wes Anderson movie. He did come out with the Isle of Dogs recently, but I like Fantastic Mr. Fox better. And George Clooney is great as the main character. And I think it's just really clever and quirky, and it's Wes Anderson. And he managed to turn his Wes Anderson visual style into an animated Wes Anderson visual style. And I love it. And it's a movie you can watch with your family too. So I don't think I wouldn't put it higher than 4, but I really like the movie quite a bit.
This is one of the few Wes Anderson movies I have still not gotten around to watching. It's on my watch list. It has been on my watch list for a while, and I just haven't sat down and done it.
My number 3 for the year was Inglourious Basterds.
Mm.
I think you can make an argument for this to be anywhere in the top 3. Personally, I really like a lot of Quentin Tarantino movies. This is up there for me as one of his best.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's my favorite, but it's definitely close to the top of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. And I really love how he just completely like turned history on its head and just wrote his own version of it. Mm-hmm. And there are so many funny scenes in this movie with Brad Pitt, especially.
Yeah.
As the Ranger coming in and trying to school these troops and trying to pretend he's Italian. And I will also say the opening scene where they are in the house and the family is hiding under the floorboards.
Mm-hmm.
To me, is one of the most dramatic scenes in any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think it's a different level of cinematography and drama than I've seen in almost any Quentin Tarantino movie.
It is. Yeah, I will wait because I will wait to talk about that one.
And my number 2 is District 9. So District 9, I think, is the best found footage movie that has ever been made.
Hmm.
There have been not a lot of them, but you have Cloverfield, you have the Blair Witch Project, to name a couple of the more well-known ones.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is not just that, but it's also tackling the issues of really basically the movie in a microcosm is about apartheid in South Africa, sold through the lens of aliens versus humans.
Yeah.
And this movie really got Neil Blomkamp on the radar for a lot of people. It was like the thing that really had people start paying attention to him.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's still my favorite movie that he's made.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he made movies with a bigger budget like Elysium, and Chappie also came out after. But I like this movie the best out of the things that he's done.
I like this movie. I think it's good, but it's not a movie I felt like I want to and need to really go back to. And so for that reason, it doesn't make my list, because for me, it doesn't have the longevity, or, it. I put it in the category of films that are good, but I've seen them, so I'm good.
Mhm.
And there's not a lot of those for me, but that's the reason why it's not on my list, because it is a very good movie and is really well done.
Yeah, I thought that he did a great job of marrying the regular camera and shooting style to the found footage angle
Mhm.
and providing a compelling narrative with the aliens and the humans and what would actually happen if we had aliens come here. We actually separated them, tried to get them to live on their own. How would that all work? It's
Yeah, it was
pretty.
a really different take on aliens,
Yeah.
obviously, because he was going after the the basically the apartheid aspect of it.
All right, so I think you're up then.
All right, so number 4 for me was Julie and Julia. Um, this is not a movie that I would think I would ordinarily like, and I don't really remember why I watched it for the first time, but it's really, really good. The performances by Meryl Streep and by Amy Adams are really fascinating. It tells two simultaneous stories. Well, they're not simultaneous, but it tells like the backstory of Julia Child, and it tells the modern day story of Julie, who's blogging and cooking through the Julia Child cookbook. And so the connection between those two characters, and it kind of shows them as they live out their lives. It's just a fantastic character drama. It's well written, it's well acted. The performances, I mean, especially Meryl Streep playing Julia Child, really, really well done. But it's heartfelt and warm, and it's a movie I've watched several times, and it wouldn't ordinarily be one that I would think I would like.
Hmm.
And so, for that reason, I think it had to be relatively high on my list. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay. It's
So,
another one I'd recommend. Uh, Number 3 for me, The Hurt Locker. And obviously, this won all kinds of awards, made Jeremy Renner a much bigger name. If I, I think this was the first major role he had, but I could be wrong on that. But um, basically, telling the story of bomb disposal, and so you've got all the classic, like it's like a modern day war classic, modern day war film classic, and uh, ironically, she then did Zero Dark 30 about the capturing, or actually about the killing of Osama bin Laden. I kind of like that one a little bit better, but I still, that's probably the reason why The Hurt Locker isn't higher on my list, but I have it at number 3.
it's a great
Uh,
movie.
yeah,
Agree.
number 2 for me is The Blind Side. Um, Sandra Bullock did end up winning an Oscar for this. Really fun story, heartwarming story. Um, it has, there are some things in the news lately, and so
Yeah.
who knows what to make of that. I think there are still some. I don't know how to characterize it properly, but basically there's still some family struggles going on there, and clearly it's a very complicated situation. But I think the story in and of itself is really good. It's really well told. It's really acted, and um, it was just a really, really well done, good, solid movie. That is another one of those family movies that everyone can go see and watch and get something out of.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Lewis with this and Moneyball obviously has written
Mm-hmm.
a couple books that turn into pretty good sports movies,
Yeah,
I would say.
for sure. All right, number 1.
So number one for me is Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Number one for me because a lot of people thought that the graphic novel Watchmen could never be turned into a movie. And there is so much involved in the story, and they don't actually get to all of it in the movie, but it would be impossible to get to all of it in a movie. Um, the reason why it's number one for me is I thought that it could not possibly have been done better as far as characterization goes and writing and tone and themes and visual style. I thought everything about it was what it should have been. Now there are a lot of people who don't agree with me. That's okay.
It's
But I just
Star Wars. It's Star Wars syndrome.
yeah.
You have people are fans of something, they're never going to be happy with it. Anyway, continue.
I think I have the benefit that I had not been entirely invested in the graphic novel before I saw the movie. So I knew of the graphic novel, had read it, but I was not like I guess you couldn't call me a fanboy of the graphic novel. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um, I have a lot of issues with Zack Snyder with a lot of things. I think that he is over the top unnecessarily. I think he is too hyper fixated on things a lot of the time. And I think that this movie, he does a great job of avoiding those traps most of the time. And I think he lets the story tell itself.
Yeah.
And it's quite a story. I mean, it's spanning a good 60 years of time. And the characters involved, the emotions and relationships between them are heavy and dense. And it's really hard to put that on screen. And I thought he did a really good job with that.
Zack Snyder does best when he has somebody else do the writing. That's one of the places he struggles is when he's the writer. And so taking his skill and allowing him to adapt something that's been well written before is definitely a marriage of positives.
And I would say also, in addition to that, if you do have Max, I would take advantage of the opportunity to watch the Watchmen show that HBO did a few years ago, which was a like mini series. I think it's like 6 episodes that tells another part of the story, and I think does a really good job of filling in some things and adding some things to the story. And I just really like the whole concept and idea of the Watchmen in general. So
Yeah.
that's what number one for me.
Number one for me, Inglorious Bastards. And this, I have said on the podcast before that I am either I love Tarantino's movies or I hate them. And this is one of the ones that I absolutely love. If you're familiar with, there's a podcast called All the Right Movies. And I want to say sometime in the last month and a half, they did like a 2-hour breakdown of this movie. And it just reminded me, I think I watched it again right before Thanksgiving. And it just reminded me of how unbelievably good this movie is. One of the things that Tarantino does super well is he is a fan of the history of cinema. And that comes out super often in this film, and it comes out in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood even more. But this film fits right in there with like Hogan's Heroes TV show or like The Dirty Dozen or any of those like classic 60s 70s war films. It fits right in there with those genres, along with having kind of like a Western type feel to it. But he treated the subject matter with the seriousness it deserves without abandoning all of his like humor. And there's always like the Quentin Tarantino quirks are all over the place in this one, but the performances are excellent. The subject matter is well done and well handled. Like it felt like he was really acting like an adult in this one, and really just he was serious when he needed to be. He was humorous when he needed to be. The visuals on this are incredible, and Rob already talked about the opening scene. When I did I did my list of the best opening scenes in cinema, and this one came in number one, and for the right reasons. Christopher Waltz won Best Supporting Actor for his role in this one, and it's still to this day the best role he's ever played.
Mm-hmm.
And some of Quentin Tarantino's best scenes and some of his best writing are in this film. Like that opening scene, the tension that just hangs on that opening scene. But then another scene, like the one where Melanie Laurent's character Shoshana is sitting in the restaurant with all the head Nazis, and then Londa comes in, and that interaction between the two of them, and that strain and the stress and the tension, like, does he know? What does he know? What is he trying to get at? Just unreal. And I love the little twist and subversion of history. And so for me, this movie is just it's one of my it's on my list of all time favorites. So for me, this one just rises to the top.
I just gotta say that's a bingo.
It's just a bingo. Just say bingo. All right. Well, that is that. And we will wrap up the show with our watch list movies we've watched over the last week. Rob, what'd you
So
watch?
I saw Argyle.
Yep, I watched it as well.
Um, I was kind of surprised after I watched it because I usually do this. I'll usually watch the movie and then go look to see if it's a new movie. What I like to do is I like to watch the movie and then I like to go look up Hollywood Reporter or Box Office Mojo or something
Mhm.
and see what movie is tracking. If it's like the second or third day it's out, see what cinema scores are saying, see what people are saying, and I think I was surprised how poorly the movie seemed to be being received
Hmm.
because I thought it was a perfectly fine movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a great movie,
Mhm.
um, but I really like Matthew Vaughn's style. And so I think that maybe because I like his style, nothing really surprised me in the movie. I think that if you came to this movie not knowing his style, some things in it might be a little jarring
Yeah.
for people. Character, like
Mhm.
character development wise, Samuel L. Jackson's character in particular, I think would really confuse some people if they didn't know how he makes movies. However, I did not. So I'm not going to spoil. There's something in the credits that it doesn't completely change the movie, but it adds a layer to the movie that no one who went into the movie knew about before they saw the movie.
Yeah.
It's just it wasn't known, and like I said, I don't know if people had known that if it would have made some other people go see the movie because they would realize it was a continuation or an extension of something that already happened. I don't know if there's that big of a following to that series.
Yeah.
I don't anything else. I want to try and keep it a little vague, but I liked it.
Yeah.
So I can't say if it. I don't think it would necessarily be a top 10 movie. I mean, it really depends on what comes out over the next year. But I love Sam Rockwell, man. He was great in the movie. So
I think it was a perfectly fine, fun, interesting movie to go sit back, listen to, and just enjoy. Like I think it was perfectly enjoyable movie. Yeah, you're right. It's not. I mean, we're not winning any awards with Argyle here, but it was perfectly enjoyable movie, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. If I'm analyzing it from that standpoint, I would say I think I think he got a little bit too convoluted with it. You can push that envelope a little bit too much. Now you expect some of it because it kind of fits in the spy genre. So you're expecting some level of intrigue and flip flopping, as it were. Um, I think it went probably just a little bit farther than it needed to, and messed around a little bit more than was necessary. But I got no issue with it. Yeah, I was surprised too. I thought I didn't come out of that movie thinking, that was really bad. I came out of it thinking, hey, that was fun. I enjoyed that.
yeah.
And there's perfectly good place for those type of movies. So I'm not going to kill it by any stretch.
So what else did you see this week? Because I didn't see anything else beyond
I
that.
will go ahead.
I did not see anything beyond that. So what else did you see?
Okay, I watched a Netflix movie called Kate, and Kate stars um, that would be Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Woody Harrelson are your two mains in this one. Like I said, it's a Netflix movie. I watched it because I needed to watch for this week's weekly movie challenge. I needed to watch a revenge film, and since I pretty much like that genre, there are not a lot of movies in that genre that I haven't seen, so I had to go with something smaller. I would say Mary Elizabeth Winstead was excellent. She usually is. The film was a very typical Netflix film in that there are things that are done really well, and then there's some other things that I'm like, all right. And so it leaves you with the like, okay, that was a movie. That was okay. Um, it was set in Japan mostly, and so I do enjoy the Japanese aesthetic and the kind of neon, the red blue kind of neon light type fixtures that often accompany a Japanese setting. So I do enjoy that. But yeah, it was fine. Um, and I watched Naiad, which is nominated for 2 Oscars for Best Actress for Annette Bening and Best Supporting Actress for Jodie Foster. And I enjoyed it. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's about a former champion swimmer, Diana Nyad, who in her late 20s had attempted. She was like known for like breaking lots of open ocean distance records for swimming, and she had tried as a 28-year-old to swim from Havana to Key West and failed, and then like retired from swimming, and then in her 60s attempts again with Jodie Foster, her best friend, as a coach.
Hmm.
And so it's about her attempting to do this swim that everyone kind of thought was impossible in her 60s. So it's kind of a sports movie. It's kind of a, like a character drama. But Annette Bening, this character of Diana Nyad is a very strong character and with a lot of quirks. And Annette Bening plays that really well, and so I think she deserves her Best Actress nomination. I didn't see a whole. I mean, Jodie Foster was fine, but I wouldn't have come out of that movie thinking, "Wow, that was a great performance for Jodie Foster."
Hmm.
But if you, it's, I mean, the main story is 2 60-year-old women trying to do stuff, but it does have a major like sports movie type feel to it as well. So that does give it slightly broader audience. Again, that is on Netflix. So that's what I saw this week.
All right.
All right, that is the show. Thank you, everyone, for checking out Film for Fans. And make sure you go to filmforfans.com where we'll have our lists up of anniversary movies eventually here hopefully in the next week or so. Tell your friends about the podcast. Until next time, enjoy the movies.